What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the first ever live episode of Always Talking Ball. We are here to recap the college football playoff rankings. Again, this is our first live show. If this looks a little weird or whatever, let us know in the chat. We love to hear from everyone in the chat. We appreciate you guys taking a break from your election coverage tonight. We're going to give you a different side of things tonight on the college football landscape. And we're here to talk about the rankings. They were just unveiled 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. We had a couple surprises. I was jotting down some notes as quickly as I could. And, you know, we're just going to start out, man. We're going to start out at the top. We're not going to be like, ESPN and go from 25 back. We're going to start at number 1, where everyone wants to start at. And obviously that's Oregon. Oregon, I think it is the deserving number 1 team in the country. There's really not much to say about that from either side. But it gets interesting. I mean, as soon as you get to number 2 and 3, in my mind, they put Ohio State at number 2 and they put Georgia at number 3. And that kind of set off a spark of like, okay, the committee is, they're paying attention to good losses now. That's what they're starting off week 1 rankings, good losses.
Yeah, we talked about it on our last show when we did our rankings that you're kind of splitting hairs with Ohio State and Georgia. But when Ward Manuel came on, the committee chair, he did definitely mention that Ohio State had the best loss by only losing by 1 at the number 1 team in the country, Oregon. And that Georgia lost to Alabama on the road in the way that they lost. I guess he thought that was, that Ohio State had the better loss. But like we talked about it, overall, Georgia has a better resume than Ohio State currently. But at this point, I do agree when he made the comment, we're just kind of splitting hairs right now between these two teams. They're both, really close. We agree, or I agree. But I just thought it was interesting that they already at the top. And as you'll see as we go down some of these teams that we're talking about, they apply different rules and different metrics and different reasons that they put Team A above Team B. And this one, they put Ohio State above Georgia because Ohio State had a better loss against Oregon. Now, as far as the two teams play on the field, I mean, I think you agree with me, Tyler, on this, that, I mean, the way that Carson Beck is playing, I have no problem with Ohio State being ahead of Georgia right now because of that, like personally. And, I mean, we did not think that this Carson Beck that we've seen over the last several games is going to be the Carson Beck that we've seen so far going into the year. I mean, in the last, 5 games, I think he's got 10 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. It's not going to get it done, man. And the inconsistency of the most important position on the field from the quarterback position. Dude, I don't think we had it on our bingo card that Will Howard was going to be out playing Carson Beck at this point during the season. And that's where we are. And the Buckeyes with Jim Knowles' defense, I don't think that there's some big difference between Georgia's defense and Ohio State's defense. They're both great defenses. So, yeah, I think you're kind of splitting hairs between the two teams. But I agree with you. The part of the great losses comment that they made was definitely different than what we've heard in the past.
Yeah, I mean, they said that, but they also, I mean, they alluded to the fact that they thought Ohio State was better on the field at this time. So strength of record would disagree, strength of schedule would disagree. Again, like you said, we're splitting hairs.
Yep.
So you got Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, and there you go at number 4, Miami Hurricanes.
This is where I've got a problem.
You tweeted it out today, I think, in response to On 3, and I don't even know where to begin with this. I know they've been dominant. I know they've got a Heisman candidate that probably maybe a Heisman frontrunner to some, but man, they have just been.
Yeah, he's the Heisman frontrunner for me. I've got somewhere I want to start with this. If there's no reason at all that Miami, like if you're going to rank them 4, that's fine. We'll get to the other teams here in a minute, but Indiana and BYU should not be where they are. What does someone say it? Indiana is 8 and BYU is 9. Indiana and BYU should not be 8 and 9 and Miami be 4. If you're going to rank Miami 4, then Indiana and BYU should be around 5 or 6 is where they should be. And Miami should not be ahead of BYU at this point, being BYU has 2 wins against teams that this committee just ranked in their top 20 with Kansas State and SMU. So that is resume-wise, that doesn't make sense. Now, here's the part now with this. There's a lot of people that on that video that we put out, if you want to go look at it on our Instagram Reels or on X or on TikTok with the other 60,000 views that are on TikTok right now. It's crazy, man, how much it blew up on TikTok.
Yeah.
But we talked about Indiana and how they should be ranked number 5 in the country right now. We thought that. And a lot of people came at us for saying, well, who have they beat? Of course, like that's what they talked about. Well, again, who's Miami beat? Okay, now let's go here. A lot of people talked about, well, Miami's offense. Miami's got the number 1 ranked scoring offense in the country. Guess who the number 2 ranked scoring offense in the country is? Indiana.
Exactly.
Yep. Now, let's go to the other side of the ball. Indiana's ranked 7th in the country in scoring defense right now, giving up points per game. Miami's 52nd. Pretty big difference between that and 1 and 2 on the offensive side. And then here's the biggest part. Indiana is their average scoring margin that they're beating teams by is 27.3 points per game right now. And Miami's is not that. Indiana is number 1 in the country in scoring margin against their teams they're playing. So, again, I know strength of schedule. Now, here's the flip side of this. Here's what I will argue against, like myself, or argue against anybody that wants to talk about, like, Indiana should be ranked higher or whatever. I'm okay if the committee would come out and say, we've got Miami 4th and we've got Indiana 8th, because I still don't think they should be that far, like, away from each other, even no matter what they would say. But I'm saying, like, if they have, okay, let me rephrase this. If they had Miami ranked ahead of Indiana, like, let's just say Miami 4 and Indiana 5 or 6. And the reasoning they say was, guys, like, we value the fact that you actually challenge yourself in non-conference play. And Miami actually went on the road in the swamp. Is it Miami's fault that Florida turned out to be whatever they turned out to be? That's not their fault. Just like it's not Texas's fault that Michigan turned out what they turned out to be. It's no different. Miami at least put a game on their schedule. They traveled to the freaking swamp to open the season to play. And Indiana's playing like Western Carolina and teams like that in their non-conference. I'm okay if Ward Manuel says that. But to try to cite metrics you're not going to win that battle between these two teams. And you're sure as hell not going to win that battle with BYU because they've got 2 wins in your current top 20.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had a problem with Miami at 4 and where teams behind. Like, again, if you're going to put Miami at 4, then the other 2 that we just mentioned, Indiana and BYU, should be closer to where they are. And this is where all those people that argue about brand bias, you're feeding into that argument.
Yeah.
You are. All right, and go and tell them who we got at 5.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no reason that Miami, they're behind a couple one-loss teams, but it's Ohio State and Georgia, and then you got Indiana behind 3 one-loss teams, and BYU behind those teams as well. So, you nailed all the points there. Miami comes in at number 4. Texas comes in at number 5. Not really too much of an issue there, although we had Indiana at number 5, and we thought that, obviously they should have been highly ranked. And
we had Texas at 4, didn't we?
Yeah. We had Texas at 4, Indiana at 5. So, I mean, no issue there. We had Miami behind Indiana.
Right.
But, I mean,
in the committee had Texas at 5.
Yeah, and Texas, again, if you want to talk about, you could do the same thing with Indiana. They've got 1 loss. They have, who's their best win? Michigan right now. And we'll get to see Indiana play Michigan this week. And we'll get to see, Texas went there. They won by 19, albeit, 2 months ago. But what's Indiana going to do to Michigan? Are they going to do what they did in Nebraska and win by 49 when Ohio State beat them by 4? Are they going to blow them out of the water? And so I just don't know, man. I mean, again, Texas has a good loss on their schedule, so maybe that got them, in the top 5 there.
Yeah, again, you could argue with the argument against Texas could be the fact that the only really good team that they played, dude, this is called what it is. They got punked. in Austin
Yeah.
by Georgia. And again, Georgia's a great team, but they got punked on their home field against Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, against Georgia. And I mean, you just said that Texas's best win is Michigan. Dude, it could be Vandy. And again, that's another thing that we didn't think we'd be saying beginning of the year, but probably
Vandy for sure.
It is Vandy. A 3-point win at Vandy is probably their best win, but how they looked in the Michigan game in the Big House is probably more impressive overall by again, they just were light years, head and shoulders, bigger, stronger, faster than Michigan in that game in the Big House. So, I don't really have a problem with Texas at 5.
Yeah. Number 6, Penn State. Number 7, Tennessee. So Penn State, I mean, they look like they are in the driver's seat to host a first-round playoff game. They're going to get a home game there in Happy Valley. And, again, it's the same thing with IU. Again, we keep going back to Indiana with all these teams.
Or BYU. We could say both, Indiana and BYU in this spot.
They're right there next to each other, but Penn State with 1 loss. And who have they beat? West Virginia?
Yeah, their best wins probably West Virginia and Morgantown.
Okay. So it's it's the inconsistencies across the board. And we told you guys for weeks this was coming.
Yep.
But the inconsistencies across the board with the committee and how they rank teams. And so it's going to be really difficult for Penn State to fumble this and to miss out on a playoff spot. Yep. Only way they're going to do it is if they drop another game, perhaps at Minnesota.
And this is where, again, I'll say the same thing like I said again for Miami. If Ward Manuel would have came out and said, dude, let me back up here. I thought that for one of the first times ever that Reese Davis and that crew did a really poor job on their end of not necessarily asking Ward Manuel questions, but the panel that was up there, Booger and McElroy and Joey Galloway and Reese, really debating the things that they should have been debating and talking about. And they didn't talk about it all. That Penn State doesn't have any good wins.
Yeah.
They didn't talk about Miami not really having any good. They didn't really debate the fact that Miami was at 4 and Indiana was all the way back at 8. They just kept talking about Indiana and BYU at 8 and 9, and they didn't really go into it heavily between the teams that they should have been talking about.
It seemed like McElroy definitely wanted to get more into it, and Joey Galloway just kept it's like he wanted to get out of there. He's I just don't. It's the first rankings; they don't matter that much, and I don't agree with that. I mean, the first rankings is where you see where the committee stands.
Yeah.
And again, where you place these teams from the beginning it's a benchmark, like a Penn State. When you place them at 6th and you look at their remaining schedule and then their results already, it's going to be tough for you to justify later, but we know they can. They'll probably somehow drop to 9th after the final game, random teams do. But it's just when you place them at 6th, you have to justify it later for which way you move them, knowing that they don't have any good wins or anything coming up.
Yeah, I'm a great example of this. Again, the part that I was going to say a second ago was if Ward Manuel or Reese or McElroy or any of them would have said, I'm okay that Penn State is at 6 and Miami's at 4 ahead of, let's say, Indiana, because at least Penn State did try to challenge themselves by having a game like West Virginia on the road in Morgantown. If they say that, okay, that's fine. I'm good with that. But, okay, now let's put the shoe on here on BYU's foot. BYU went to SMU, who the committee have at, wasn't SMU, I think, 13?
Yeah.
In their rankings?
First team out.
Yeah. So BYU played on the road at SMU. They did challenge themselves at a conference.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't necessarily think there was as many of egregious things as there normally is, but there were a couple, and the ones we're talking about right now, right out of the gate, are the ones that I thought were the most egregious.
Yeah, I think resume-wise, if I'm BYU, I'm ticked. Game control and just eyeball test, I think if I'm Indiana, I'm ticked. I mean, we've watched a lot of these other teams in front of them struggle with teams at home or on the road, look terrible at times. Indiana has yet to look terrible, and BYU just continues to beat ranked teams. They beat SMU, they beat Kansas State. So I hate using the ranked wins stuff, but if the committee's going to do it, we got to do it too.
Yeah, I want to point another thing out on this too that a friend of mine was saying is with Indiana right now, if you rank them all the way at 5 and keep them there or whatever, people don't want the precedent to be set, and I'm okay with this as well. My buddy Jake told me this from Alabama. He said, I don't want it to be the precedent to be set that, like, you can just schedule teams like Western Carolina and teams like that in non-conference and just beat the brakes off of them and win all those games, and you could be ranked in the top 5. But I'll give you an example. A lot of people, again, on the post that we put out of Indiana on TikTok, they kept bringing up TCU from a few years ago. That's a huge difference. TCU was beating teams by one possession, bad teams by one possession, week in and week out. Indiana is beating bad teams and doesn't care that those teams have families. Just, again, they're the number 1 ranked team as far as scoring margin, how bad they're beating their opponents in the entire country. So they're doing exactly what a good football team should do against those teams. That's the biggest difference with this. If Indiana was playing really close games against a trash schedule, dude, we would not be sitting here pounding our fists for this right now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Indiana was 8, BYU was 9, and you're Irish. Notre Dame was at 10. I'll give you the floor.
I'm going to tick off just a bunch of Irish fans here, probably, and Notre Dame fans, if you're listening. Again, if you are knowing that the committee is valuing good losses now, why is Notre Dame 10th, right? They have undoubtedly the worst loss of any team in the top 25. I've got an issue with Notre Dame, obviously ahead of Alabama, because we had Alabama ahead of Notre Dame. I've got issue with Notre Dame ahead of Boise State. And I got an issue with Notre Dame ahead of SMU too, because based on strength of record, both those teams have a better strength of schedule so far than Notre Dame. And then obviously Boise State loses to Oregon by 3 and SMU loses to BYU by 3. Both teams enter the top 10, and not Northern Illinois is a 28-point favorite. You got to explain to me why Notre Dame is ranked 10th, other than just, the win over A&M, because like we've said, SMU now has a win over Pitt, and in very convincing fashion. BYU has wins over SMU and Kansas State. And Boise State, they've got a win over UNLV. They don't have any hashtag ranked wins, but they got some good ones on their schedule, and they played a tougher strength of schedule overall than Notre Dame. So,
yeah. So I will actually, here, I didn't have this on the bingo card tonight. Here I am going to defend Notre Dame a little bit. I agree with most of everything you just said. The only thing I'll disagree with is I think Notre Dame should be ahead of SMU and Boise at this point. Again, the good old my eyeballs when I watch Notre Dame play. That's a good football team, man. I do think that they're currently one of the 12 best teams in the country. Their resume may not, like you just said, their overall resume may not just say it, but I mean, man, their defense, nasty per usual. They're running the football really well. They did. That Louisville win just got a lot better with Louisville and Jeff Brom going into Death Valley Mid and taking care of Clemson like they did. I know we didn't have on the bingo card Navy, but again, the Navy win just kind of blew up in their face a little bit with them losing to Rice this past week. But, yeah, I'm okay with them right now being ahead of SMU, and because I know SMU got the win against Pitt. If there's any Pitt fans listening to this, sorry. But I just don't think Pitt's personally that good. So I definitely think Notre Dame's win in College Station, even though that A&M team week 1 probably isn't the same A&M team that we've seen the last several. I know they just lost to South Carolina, but still A&M's gotten better throughout the year overall. But you can't take that away from Notre Dame, and you can't say, well, this Texas A&M team's not the same as they were week 1. They're better now. You can't say that and use that against Notre Dame. They still went into College Station, challenged themselves, went into SEC country and 110,000 fans, and beat Texas A&M on the field. So I'm okay with Notre Dame being in the top 12. I just think they're one spot too high, or maybe 2 spots too high.
Yeah, so Alabama comes in at number 11. Big game against LSU, obviously, this week. So Alabama, basically, they're win and they're in. Win out and they're in.
Yep.
Right?
So here we go. I got one I want to throw out to you here. I'm not the biggest fan of Heather Dinich. That's known. But I thought she threw out some Again, this was wild tonight. She threw out better points than pretty much anybody else on the show tonight. One of the things that she brought up was, number one, where SMU is at currently at 13. Most people think, well, if they not win out, but if they were to keep winning and then lose in the ACC title game, you'd think that they'd be in. There's some teams behind them, some powerful teams like LSU. If they were to beat Alabama, she's right. LSU would jump over SMU. And if LSU wins out, SMU's not going to jump them. If Ole Miss beats Georgia this weekend and Ole Miss were to continue to win out after that, Ole Miss is going to stay ahead of SMU. And Georgia's not going to drop below SMU. So there are some situations to where
A&M wins out and they beat Texas.
Correct. They're not going to drop. They're not going to drop. That's not going to happen. So she was right about that. I thought that was a great point that she pointed out there. But the main thing she pointed out that, dude, maybe you knew this, but I had no clue. She said since 2014, man, since the playoff committee's been putting together rankings, that every single year they've had a 3-loss team in their final rankings in the top 10. Now, I did not fact check her on that, but I would imagine that's probably true. I'm just going to take her word for it.
Yeah.
So she said, so based off of history, everybody's saying there's no way a 3-loss team can get in the playoffs. She said, based off history, the committee's final rankings has had that. Now, again, the committee's never had to worry about a playoff by whoever they have ranked at 10. Now they will. So my question to you is, I don't think that there's hardly any teams out there that have the strength of schedule that with 3 losses that they could get in. But at the end of the year, unless they're an SEC team because of all the higher ranked teams that they play. And there's only 2 SEC teams out of all of these here that I think you could even say that have the type of schedule that could do that. And that's Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, one of the things that Ward Manuel skirted around, and they asked him, the loser in the conference championship games, what's going to happen to them? You can't really project down the road. But again, if SMU wins out, they got 1 loss, and then you're going against these other teams like Alabama, A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, who maybe don't play in the conference championship game, and they got 2 or 3 losses. Well, if SMU loses that, they add another loss. But if they didn't play that game, they're 1 or 2 losses ahead. And so it just kind of gets into the weeds there. Nobody's going to be surprised that if there's one 3-loss team getting in the playoff, it's going to be Alabama because #brand bias. So,
Yeah, well, that's possible. Let me ask you this, though.
Nobody benefits from a loss more than Alabama. So.
they have in the past. I will admit that. They have. I'm not going to actually argue against that. They for sure have actually done They got in after they lost to LSU in the regular season. Now, granted, they won the national championship. And
we said it this week. They didn't even play. They moved up 3 spots in the AP poll. So
right. Yeah, you and I talked about it on our last episode. The winners of this past weekend was probably LSU, Alabama, and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
For not having to be involved in that chaos.
Yep.
But I know we're getting off in the weeds, but I don't care. So this is part of this. We're talking about scenarios and different things like that. So what you just said, let's say SMU wins all their games like they're supposed to. Right now, they're going to be favored in all these games, and they go to the ACC title game and lose. I think it kind of matters how they lose in that game. But let's say that Georgia's only a 2.5-point favorite this weekend against Ole Miss. What if Georgia does lose to Ole Miss and they happen to lose to Tennessee, and they're 9-3 with the number 1 strength of schedule in the entire country, and SMU sitting there with 2 losses?
If Georgia
with no way near the strength of schedule or anything like that.
Georgia has 2 more losses, though. Their strength of record and the resume is probably not number 1 in the country because their only big win would be over Texas. They would just have a lot of really good losses. But again, maybe the committee's like, man, Georgia, they just got 3 really good losses, so we should probably rank them in the top 5. I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, Georgia didn't choose that schedule. SEC gave them that schedule.
Yeah. Hey, man, your boy Slip just hit us up on X and said, hey, let's get the live chat going, boys.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I don't have access to that. I don't mean to throw you under the bus here. You the one that drives the show. You the captain that steers the ship.
Yeah, I'll look at it. I'm trying here.
You just put me in a seat and put seatbelts on me to make sure I stay on the ship. But But yeah, I don't know if it's working on Instagram Live. So those that try to watch on Instagram Live, sorry about that. But that's all right. We got it working on X. We got it working on YouTube.
Yeah, we told you this would, there would be some hiccups, there'd be some
bear with it.
technical difficulties here.
It's all good. We're just a couple dads here talking some ball.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's get on with it. We talked about A&M, we talked about LSU, we talked about Ole Miss a little bit. You got any thoughts on those three teams at 14, 15, 16, other than the ones you just mentioned?
No, I mean, I do think that order-wise, that it looks like that they're ordered by most of those teams have played each other, who beat who. I do think that Ole Miss has the biggest opportunity. Ole Miss and LSU, obviously, this week with their games against Alabama and Georgia, but Ole Miss only being a 2.5-point dog. Our next episode, we're really going to break that game down a lot. I've already got some good nuggets on that one for you, Tyler. You're the metrics guy here. I got some good metrics for you, man, between those two teams. I know you're excited about that. But you pointed it out. I think you said on Saturday when they were just absolutely clapping Arkansas's cheeks that you said that Ole Miss has only trailed 2 minutes of the entire season.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
2 minutes of the entire season. But Ole Miss's metrics are ridiculous, really good. And we're going to get into that next episode. But they've got a huge opportunity here, only as a 2.5-point dog. If they were to beat Georgia, I think you could see them skyrocket up the rankings because they're playing good football right now.
Yeah. All right. A couple teams that fell this last week was Iowa State, Pittsburgh coming in at 17 and 18.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State at 19. How about Colorado at 20? Well done, EA Sports.
Yeah,
we got to eat some crow on that one, right? They had them in the top 20
team. The joke's on all of us, bro. The joke's on every one of us, unless you were a big Colorado bandwagon lover. Yeah. Which there's obviously plenty of those, but there were more haters before the year. We were obviously one of them.
Yeah.
And the joke was on us, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like if I had a plate of crow here, I'd eat it with you.
The Pitt thing at what are they, 18?
18.
Yeah, I mean, again, so they're valuing good wins there.
Nah, dude. Okay. This was the next. This was the next one. I've got it literally had in my notes here. This was the next one that when that popped up, I was kind of looked at it like, what? Like, why are they at 18? That doesn't make much sense to me.
Right.
Again, I'm sorry if there's any Pitt folks watching or listening or anything. I love me some Eli Holstein transfer from Bama. Dude's a dog, but yeah, I don't know why that they were ranked ahead of some of the teams that they're ranked ahead of.
Right. Yeah, some of the stuff is just puzzling. 21 through 25, they just had to sneak in Missouri, didn't they? They just had to put in another SEC.
You know what I've got right here in my note? Mizzou-Tyler with a laughing emoji.
Yeah. I mean, you knew it was coming. I mean, I know they beat Vandy, but come on.
Yeah, McElroy used that as the reason they were ranked there, and I just started dying out laughing. I said, you never thought that well, okay, you used to always say this to me. I'll say it to you. Who should be there? Who should be 24 or 25?
Vandy. Sometimes head-to-head just, it doesn't tell enough of the story.
Well, I think I got a better one for you here. I think South Carolina.
Yeah.
South Carolina and Vandy have the same record, and South Carolina, again, hey, the committee values good losses. South Carolina got some great losses, man.
Yeah.
Vandy got a great loss, only losing by 3 to Tech. But again, Vandy lost to Georgia State. So that's, not good.
Hey, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But with South Carolina, though, had that game, they had a war in Tuscaloosa. When they played LSU, I think we've all said this, if Lenora Sellers doesn't go down in that game, I think you could even find a lot of LSU fans that would tell you that they don't win that game if Lenora Sellers doesn't go down. And Robbie Ashford had to play in that game. So, I mean, South Carolina, they just beat Texas A&M, handled Texas A&M like they did. I'd be okay if A&M that was the one that I thought that I don't think it's egregious necessarily, but if I was going to just like you always ask me, the rule of thumb, if you're going to complain about someone being ranked, who would you replace them with? I would have South Carolina there.
Right. Thoughts on Clemson at 23 or Army at 25? Army's got a long way to climb. They got a bad strength of schedule. They got that game against Notre Dame, but
133rd ranked. 100, dude, Joey Galloway tried to compare Army to Indiana. I about flipped out. I saw that, and then I loved it when Reese very calmly was like, "Well, hang on now. I mean, when Indiana is playing like some Big Ten teams, and Army is playing Lehigh, he didn't say Lehigh, but that's what he should have said.
Right.
But still, we love the troops, man. You mean heck, you've been like you said the other day, you may donate some coin to the troops or something with all the money they've been winning you this year on your best bets.
Yeah. Yep.
And you jumped off the Navy bandwagon just in time.
Yeah. Yeah. They just seem to have collapsed. But Army, obviously, we don't know if the quarterback's going to be healthy or not. But there's the rankings. I'm going to pull up the bracket because just kind of looking at this thing, man, it looks beautiful.
It really does.
It looks beautiful.
Who doesn't love it? Like when March Madness comes around, everybody talks. Look at that.
Yeah,
that's gorgeous.
So look at these. I mean, you got just think about these.
With the production here.
Think about these.
We got brackets we're pulling up.
Yes, sir.
I keep saying we like I got a mouse in my pocket. You're the one doing all this, but
I come prepared. Man, that first round game. It's a shame it's not flipped. We'd love to see Ohio State go to the blue turf, but Boise State going on the road and getting to prove themselves again. They played Oregon well, and they played. Who's to say they won't play Ohio State well? Indiana having to go on the road again. Things can change. I think they could possibly move up after they beat Michigan and other teams fall, but just with the season they've had so far, and to slot them on the road first round, that's a tough draw for them right there.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I mean, dude, that would be. To see Curtis Rourke and that offense and that Indiana offensive train that they've got right now, the number 2 ranked scoring offense in the entire freaking country, and going up against that nasty Tennessee defense and that D-line in Knoxville, I would love for that to be a night game. That would be a lot of fun.
The way we've seen Tennessee play, though, I mean,
yeah, they better hope their defense shows up.
Indiana could walk right in there and win that game.
They could, dude. Absolutely, they could. No doubt. And Bama and Texas, dude. Whoo! Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun to see those two because I mean, again, they don't play in the regular season this year, so it's 2 SEC teams. But yeah, that would be a lot of fun to watch. Again, I don't agree with how they've got these teams seeded. So, I mean, Penn State, Notre Dame. Not a lot of high flying skill position passing offense in that game. At all. That would actually be pretty similar, like style type teams playing each other in that game.
Yeah.
Like what would the total be? 42 or 42 or less?
43, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be. Yeah. I almost wish that they would flip flop. No, because then you'd have Indiana playing. I don't know. But either way,
the beautiful thing is we don't have any rematches, so that's nice. We don't even look like right now, if this was a bracket, we wouldn't have any rematches
until the semis.
Potential rematches in the quarters, until the semifinals.
Yep.
So that's obviously one of the things that people were worried about when when this all came out. So to remind you guys, go ahead.
I was going to say I don't mean to put you on the spot. Can you pull that bracket up one more time?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to mention one more thing. In regards to it. You pointed this out a couple of weeks ago. They actually, old GMAC pointed it out on the show tonight. Boise sitting there ranked 12th, not too many spots behind. Again, the conference champion, BYU. As you see there, BYU is 9th as the 4th ranked highest conference champ. When McElroy was saying that, like, when it does matter where you are ranked right now. You just pointed it out because if you were to lose, so let's just say BYU becomes the Big 12 champ. Like, what if they lose this week in the Holy War at Utah? And then Boise State wins out. I mean, it's possible, man, that Boise could be that 4th ranked, highest ranked conference champ. I never believed that was even possible, but you pointed it out 2 weeks ago. I dismissed it. And here we are. You're right, man. It's very possible.
The next highest ranked Big 12 team is 5 spots below Boise State at 17.
Yeah, so I don't know what a Big 12 team behind them, how many impressive wins they could stack up enough to jump Boise. You know what I mean?
I mean, I could see it right now, just, Colorado, going, running the table and media hype and everything, and that affecting the rankings and them jumping up. And
Yeah, I could see
yeah,
it happening,
you
but
can see it
I'm
happen.
just saying, as far back as they are right now, I don't know how many more impressive wins that they could necessarily justify jumping them so many spots.
Yeah.
But it's definitely possible, man, that Boise could be that fourth seed and be in there. But it's also possible, correct me if I'm wrong, that Boise could end up being like a 8 or 9, like 7, 8 or 9 seed. But dude, what if they, like I just said, they're 7 or 8 seed? What if
Yeah.
they're hosting and like an SEC team, man, on the blue carpet?
I know we talked about it. It's going to be freezing there in
Freezing
Boise in
cold.
December.
Like, yeah, dude. Yeah. Or what if Miami, timeout, what if Miami were to drop a game, still make the playoffs, be one of those lower seeds, and have to go Boise's an 8 seed and Miami's a
Yeah.
9 seed, and the
Yeah.
Canes got to go play on the blue carpet?
That would not be a good recipe for them.
No, it wouldn't. I'm
Yeah.
pulling up. Go ahead. I'm pulling up Twitter. We got some people asking questions on the old on X. I keep saying.
Yeah, hit us up. The live chat is not working, so tweet at us. Comment on YouTube as much as you can. Sorry, the Instagram's not working. Facebook, all that. We'll try to answer as much as we got. What do you got for us?
All right. So your best friend,
Yep.
Slip Bayless, at Slip Bayless. By the way, love. That's if you're going to have a burner account name, it's a great name.
Yep.
At AlwaysTalkBall, curious to know, with the strength of schedule being seemingly impossible to fix, would you like to see an official recruiting class and coaching staff ranking system help to determine these preseason rankings? Would certainly have given IU a boost before the year.
Give me your thoughts first.
I mean, I could see. I wouldn't necessarily be like completely against it, but I just don't know. My answer really is I just don't really know what the answer is to fix with such unbalanced scheduling. How you fix that in regards to a team with necessarily doesn't have the roster maybe another team has in the recruiting rankings and all of that, and that they're beating the brakes off of people, how they could get ranked much higher or not. I don't know.
Yeah, the problem with this is like Indiana, they finish 11-1 this year. Then maybe they go to the playoff. They lose in the first round. Signetti comes back. They get another nice transfer class. They're going to start out, top 15, top 20 next year based on this year's success. So I think that's what he's getting at is kind of like, let's base it off of kind of like a forward ranking metric, right? Some sort of forward ranking, looking into the future a little bit. Because Michigan did the same thing. They won the national title. How much are we going to drop Michigan for losing Jim Harbaugh and losing, 17 guys to the draft, right? Well, we're going to put them, number 10? Florida State, 13-0. Another supposedly good transfer class coming in.
Yep.
1-8 this year. So it really is almost impossible to figure out what to do. They're going to put preseason rankings out no matter what, because that's, people, like we always say, we don't agree with it, but people love talking about rankings. So we're going to talk about rankings. That's what drives the traffic. And so that's what we're going to do.
Great point you just made in regards to, like, Florida State got ranked so high again just because of what they did last year, but they lost basically every good player.
Yeah.
That made them what they were last year.
Yeah.
And Michigan, like everything that they lost, didn't have a quarterback going into the year. And we all talked about that, knew they didn't. The most important position on the field. And yet they were preseason ranked in the top 10.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily, again, I don't know the answer, but I don't disagree with what he's saying. It would have helped someone like IU out at this point.
Yeah. All right. I'll pull up, in case you guys missed it. This is our college football playoff predictions based on our rankings. We think they.
Again, these are our own rankings for anybody that's watching this. These were the ones we released. Did you release them earlier today, or was it yesterday?
It came out on Monday. It comes out on Monday afternoons with our top 12. And so based on our top 12, we'd obviously saw Boise State and Ohio State. We nailed that matchup. Penn State and Ohio State were right there. Penn State and Tennessee were right there. Texas was right there. we got all 12 teams, right? So at least we did that.
Yep. We did. We nailed the 12 teams. I'm pulling up our actual rankings themselves.
Yeah.
While you're talking about it right now, because I don't want people to be confused by like,
I got
talking about
here.
Miami shouldn't be whatever. We had Miami at 6. But again, here's what we were talking about a minute ago. We had Indiana 5, Miami 6, BYU 7. They're all grouped together. It's not Miami ranked 4 spots ahead. There you go. Yeah, these were our official 1 through 12, how we had it. And we had A&M at 12 because we had a slight omission early on. We put LSU at 12, and then you pointed it out greatly and said, "Dude, why did we do that?"
I didn't point it out. Yeah, I didn't point it out. Updog Sports Talk at Updog Sports Talk pointed it out to us. So they got that one on us. And
good pod, by the way.
Clear omission.
Yeah, good pod, by the way, at Updog Sport. They're good. They're good guys, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they pointed that out, they were dead on. I mean, A&M just played LSU on the field and beat them by double digits. So A&M should definitely be 12. And I think we had that order we were talking about with like LSU and Ole Miss after that, one after another. Again, LSU beat Ole Miss, so that's probably where they should be ranked at the time. So, yeah, here's where we had it. Like you said, we had Alabama ahead of Notre Dame at this point. I think the only big difference that you and I had between each other wasn't a big difference. I had Tennessee at 8, and you had Penn State at 8.
Mm-hmm.
I had Penn State at 9. Again, whatever. Like, it's not some huge ordeal. But ours are better, bro. Yeah.
I agree. They're always better. Yeah. One more thing I want to pull up here is because we talk about the committee, and this is always interesting, fun to talk about, and that is BCS Know-How.
Hey.
Coming out with their college football, simulated BCS rankings. And it's always interesting to see. There's not much change between like the top 12, 15. They're all kind of, 1-2 spots away from each other. Mm-hmm. But man, you got Colorado down there at 25th in the BCS. You notice you don't see Missouri anywhere. You see South Carolina in there. So good call by you. But Colorado is probably the most overranked as far as I can see from the CFP committee, 20th to 25th. I think probably the most underranked might be
Pittsburgh 17. Were they 17 or 18 in the committee?
Yeah, they're 4 spots up. But I think the most underranked right now is Army.
Yep.
As far as the BCS.
Yep.
And that's where you kind of get into a little bit of the weeds about, hey, should we, are we gonna, really listen to these committee of 12, 13 people? I mean, do they really know as much? Are they really just not any better than kind of just your common AP voter?
Yeah, I said this on our last episode, and I'll say it again. The main reason, and I was one of them way back when, I did not like the fact that there was some computerized ordeal deciding who was going to play for a national championship. I hated it. And we wanted, at that time, the people that were against the BCS wanted the human element brought in.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing that we wanted was transparency. We're not getting that.
Right.
We've never gotten it from this committee group. Never. They go there in Grapevine, Texas, behind closed doors, and we don't know who, what, where, why, that they came to the decisions that they come, how do they come to the decisions that they come to?
Mm-hmm.
That's my problem. That Ward Manuel and that crew never will ever 100% be an open book and tell us why that they did what they did. And it just drives me crazy, man. And we as college football fans, these teams, these players, these coaches, their fate, man, everybody always says your fate's decided on the field. It's not necessarily decided on the field. Yeah, if you win all your games, sure, it is decided on the field. But there are plenty of situations, man, where there's a lot of teams that are splitting hairs against each other, and we don't know why they chose the team A over team B. And I would even settle for, well, we just think that, like he kind of said it with Ohio State, we just think Ohio State's better than Georgia right now. If that's your answer and that's it, I could be okay with that. I would like for them to elaborate why they think they're better. But give us
at least we come on here when we do our rankings. on Sunday night and Monday morning, whenever you're listening or watching, we come on here and we do our rankings and put them out there for the public to see. We talk about why we had Georgia ranked number 2 versus Ohio State ranked number 3. So we're really no different than the committee. I mean, just a couple of guys who watch all the games, right?
Yeah, the difference is we put ours on social media and let people get to rip us. agree with us, whatever.
Yeah, we put our videos out and people just make fun of us like it's cool. We love it.
You don't know ball.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, whatever. But that's the problem that we have. And it's so funny there because there's so many people I know that all agree. Not all, like everybody, but there's a lot of people I know that are diehard college football fans that think the same thing that you just said and that I agree with as well. Wouldn't have a problem at all if they went back to the BCS system to decide the 12 teams. If the committee's not going to be transparent of how they get there.
Right.
So
that's all we're looking for is transparency.
Yep.
All right. So that pretty much does it. I mean, you got anything else?
No, man. This was fun. First ever live show. Just talking about the rankings, giving scenarios.
Yeah, we got a good little crowd on Twitter right now. Appreciate you guys watching on Twitter. Good little crowd on YouTube. Sorry, we'll get the Instagram fixed. We'll try to get the live chat fixed for next time. But this was fun, man. We'll get back to watching election coverage all night, seeing what happens. But yeah, man, it's fun.
Yeah, and then what we got is it Thursday late tomorrow night, and then Thursday morning our next or Friday morning.
Yeah, late Thursday night, Friday morning. Come out with our game previews for what is it, week 11 already?
Whew, yeah, week 11. You got Ole Miss at Georgia and Bama and LSU. Obviously, that's the 2 headlined matchups, but some other good matchups as well. We'll have some best bets that we'll throw out. We've both been in the green 2 weeks in a row. I think I'm 10-6-1 the last 2 weeks, and you
last 3 weeks I'm 16-8 against the spread. So kind of caught fire here a little bit.
16-8, let's go, man.
We do a little weekly 10 with Walk on Red Shirt. Shout out to those guys, and he sent me a little note today that we are catching up to CFB home. So we're right there. We started off the season pretty awful.
Yeah.
So we're catching up, man. We're making some moves. And, if you're watching on Twitter, click the follow button, or X, whatever you want to call it. Click the follow button. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. It's awesome. We appreciate that. Facebook, again, follow us. We're on Apple and Spotify and YouTube, all that good stuff. And so like Lance said, we will be back on late Thursday night on YouTube, Friday morning on Apple and Spotify. Appreciate you guys. This has been fun. We'll do it again next week for the next week's rankings, and we won't have an election to contend with either. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.